Hi there, Daniel Rosell here from DSR Ghostwriting.com. So, another one of the common questions I get asked is, what do you recommend we send as a brief, or what is a brief? Sometimes I mention the word brief and people haven't heard the word brief. So, if that's you, if you're working at a marketing agency or PR agency, you probably send writers briefs a lot. So you probably don't need to watch this video. If you never heard the term before I mentioned it, then this is a video for you. So people commonly ask, what's your procedure? So this video will also cover that topic. So the procedure typically is, if I sign up a new client, firstly there is a onboarding process. For the onboarding process, I will usually have a kickoff call with the client. So that's basically a deep dive. Now, I do hold Zoom calls, 15 to 30 minute Zoom calls with prospects, introductory calls, and that's fine to get an introduction to the business. I'm not able to, commit 90 minutes to, to hearing out in detail every business, every prospective client I talk to, their business. So for that reason, I recommend an introductory call. If you have, for example, a subject matter expert, an SME, whose input's going to be really integral to the success of a writing project, it's a great time to organize a Zoom call with 3 or 4 inputs. We'll have a talk, and I find that 1 hour on the phone can save 3 or 4 hours writing, where I'm coming back at you with questions, and it can all be resolved often in one phone call. So an introductory call is something I recommend. If you don't like speaking on the phone, then you can just send introductory materials. An NDA is commonly required. Now, I do not have an NDA because the NDA, in my experience, has always come from the client side. So they send me an NDA, and I will basically, if you're worried about sending stuff to me, I'm happy to sign an NDA. I do, by default, reserve the right to share work on my portfolio. Not a publicly accessible portfolio, not necessarily even the one behind the password on my website, just to send if it's a relevant sample that I would really like to share. I reserve that right. It's very, very helpful to me. But I, of course, have the option to opt out. So if you'd like to opt out of that process, you're not happy for me to mention your client, you're not happy for me to use the clips, all these happen, you can go through that process and we can talk about it. It's probably better to talk about that before committing to anything. So that's typically the paperwork process, signing the NDA, getting that kickoff call in place, and usually it's NDA then kickoff. And then at that point, it's a case of delivering writing projects. So I'm not going to go into the strategy and the pitching, the kind of bookend services I offer. Let's just keep it simple, talk about writing services. So that's where the brief comes in. So I have a brief on my website. If you go under the client services button and click on brief, I have created a brief there. It's my own amalgamation of briefs I have been sent and received over the years. But let's just talk about a typical brief. So a brief is a set of instructions for the writer for some piece of writing. So whether that's a white paper or whether that's an article, you'll send the writer a brief. I've got briefs that have been an email. I've got briefs that have been 34-page documents. It really runs the gamut. But in terms of what I would recommend, so one, not to do, there's 2 polarities, don't do this and don't do this. On the minuscule side, don't provide only bare details. So basically the stuff I look for on the form, just to give some examples, I would like to know your SEO keywords. Do you have SEO keywords from your digital marketing team that you want to bleed into the piece? However, I'm more focused really on thought leadership. So messaging is something really important to me. What's your key messaging? Is there high level messaging defined in your public relations campaign or in your marketing plan? What's the sub messaging? So you might have a central message and you have certain sub messages or secondary messages that you want to bleed into this particular piece of thought leadership writing. The take home message. What is the final takeaway point that you want people, when they come across this article in your Medium, your LinkedIn, a trade magazine, a video, a podcast, doesn't matter where it is, what's the thing you want your readers or your readers or your audience to come away with? Another thing I have in my brief form is controlled terminology, and some people say, what do you mean by that? So basically, with controlled terminology, there are in certain industries, I often get people saying, say this, don't say this. So in some style guides, you'll see this called controlled terminology. Industry terminology, we can't use this word because it's a restricted term in our industry. that kind of thing. So if you have language, words, formulations that can't be used or that can be used, please put them in that field or have that field in your brief. Another field I have in there is inspiration. So I often ask people, well, is there somebody who you follow on Medium or LinkedIn, etc., that you have been following what they write and you think it's really, really good? So put in a few things there. So that's on the minuscule side of things. Again, an outline, a body for the article, your SEO keywords that you need to be included in there, the type of English. Do you need British English? Do you need American English? And I can write in both. I've done a lot of writing in American English. My native English is Irish English, so very close to British English, but I can do both. But you need to specify the target word count. For example, if this is a contributed content opportunity you've secured through your PR company, if it's a 1,400 word opportunity, then tell me that this has to be a 1,400 word piece. Anything else in the style guide. So if it's a style guide for let's say CIO.com and it's not publicly accessible, if it is, I can just get it myself. If it's something, directions you've got from your editorial contact, then please pass that on as well so that I know to develop the writing that it'll be in sync with that. So those are really the main things that go into a brief. Now, I said there's a best practice and a worst practice. Really, the only worst practice I can say is just people that send on an extraordinary amount of material. So I often tell people, don't be shy about sending on material, and I actually mean it. What I typically mean is for a 1,000 word article, if you want to link to 2 or 3 or 4 external resources, that's fantastic. I can go and read those. I do get people that will send me check out these 15 articles and these 5 YouTube channels and watch this 1 hour documentary. So just be realistic. If it is essential that I watch an exhaustive amount of material, I'll probably come back to you with another quote, because that would take a number of hours to watch it. So that's fine. If that's really what you want, we can do, I can re-quote or quote based on spec, which is what I do anyway, and that's part of the reason. So that's basically what goes into a brief. In terms of the small logistics, in terms of how to send it to me, you can use the form on that website. You can download the template. I also have a fillable PDF, and you can send that to me, or just use a form, or you can use your own form and just send it by email. You can even send it by PGP if privacy is a concern, etc. So that's basically it, guys. I hope that's explained what my process is, what a brief is, and in terms of the process, just to finalize. After receiving the brief, I will go ahead and write. Now, people often ask, what's your typical turnaround time? Typical turnaround time for an article, let's say, could be roughly 4 to 5 business days on the short end, 6 to 7 business days on the long end, 2 to 3 business days to 4 to 5 business days between revisions. And again, the revisions will depend on the contract and what we've agreed. But that's to give a rough time estimate. That's the process. And then just getting your feedback, editing the document, and sending you incremental versions. So I do take back the document between rounds revision, make sure that you get your revisions together, bring that back for editing, send that back out to you. So I use a pretty regimented, staged version, just for good version control, and that whenever me, you, and your client and an agency all editing at the one time, because I found that tends to not work very well, to say the least. So hope that's been useful. If you've more questions you want to discuss further, drop me an email or use the Zoom booking link on the website. Under the contact form, click on book a meeting, and you'll get a Calendly pop-up, and you can use that to book a time on my calendar to have a chat over Zoom. Thanks for watching.